All right, guys, in this set of videos, we're going to talk about production controls, just like we talked about material controls. So the materials that we are using in a biopharma manufacturing site, they've got to be controlled in some form or in some fashion, because that's what the CFR tells us that these companies have to do. So whatever they tell us we got to do, they got to do them. So we've got to follow a certain system in place. There's a right way to do things. There's an order to the chaos that happens. And as long as we follow step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, our plan is already mapped out, and we don't have to worry about these other problems that kind of the laboratory managers and the upper level CEOs of these companies have to deal with when it concerns federal regulations and the CFR, especially 21. So in this section, we're going to now turn our focus to the production area. And this is going to be very easy because we can't give you regulations on the production area, people, because we don't know what you're producing. So the government actually makes sense for a change. And they're just like, hey, listen, here's the thing. We don't know what you're doing. We don't know what you're making. And we're not going to give you specifics. We're going to give you some very vague comments again. And as long as you follow these vague comments or guidelines, then you're going to be okay. So they're going to give us some general statements, but nothing specific, because there's too many things that are going on in the production. So there's too many different ways to do things. There's, okay, as a facility, I'm not necessarily doing this, I'm doing that. They can't make very specific judgment calls when it concerns this type of information. So what they do is that they tell us in 21 CFR, all right, so if you're in the production, well, guess what? You've got to make sure that you go in and that you provide us this idea of a written procedure. Oh, I know what that is, Tracy. You just told us. That's called an SOP. Absolutely. There's got to be an SOP for the production. So we've got to have a set of rules and steps in place on the production line, just like everywhere else, to make sure that I'm following it, to ensure that the production is going according to plan. That's what this is all about. And if there's any deviations in that, if there's any changes in that, if things do not what we call conform, then we've got to make sure that we document it. We got to make sure that we log it. We have to investigate it. We got to go through and how to decide how to prevent those deviations from happening again. So deviations refers to the events that do not conform to the instructions of the procedures or the GMP practices. Now, we all know mistakes are going to happen. That is not a thing. So mistakes will happen. You will go to work, you will do things, and maybe you've done it that right way over and over and over, week after week after week, and one day you're just going to have a really bad day. If that goes on, that's fine. That's not a big deal. Well, it depends on what you do. We hope it's not a big deal. But whatever you did, it was a deviation. It was a change. This is not what normally happens. You made a mistake. If you made a mistake, well, find out what happened first. Oh no, I set it at the wrong temperature. I wasn't paying attention. Okay. Well, at least you figured out what happened. You now know what caused the mistake, why things did not turn out the way that they should have turned out. You didn't follow the SOP. You didn't do the right and correct directions. You made a mistake. Next, determine the impact of the product. By not controlling the temperature, how did that affect the product? Did the purity go down? The concentration go down? Did you even make what you were supposed to make? What happened? What's bad? Next up, find out why that deviation kind of happened in the first place. What was there? What happened that allowed you to make that mistake? Because if something allowed you to make that mistake, we need to go in and we need to fix that, and we need to prevent that from happening in the future. So that is the next corrective and preventive actions. You ran this thing at the wrong temperature for how long? And it allowed you to do that? Well, it shouldn't have even allowed you to do that. It should have made you say, no, this is not correct. There should have been a check and balance system in place. What could have we done to help prevent you from making that mistake in the first place? And then finally, the quality unit oversees those investigations. So when you figure out what you did, how it affected the product, what allowed you to make that mistake, and then maybe a reason of how we can prevent that in the future. All of that information goes to the quality unit, and the quality unit reviews it. And that would be, the quality assurance team, everyone else that are kind of involved in that whole aspect of the company. And they're going to make a judgment call on how they can improve this SOP. How can they improve that piece of equipment? How can they improve that part of the procedure? What kind of things can go in place to prevent these mistakes from happening in the future? That's what this is all about. And if they can do something, then they'll do it. And then things get updated. And that way you don't make that mistake again, or someone else doesn't make the same mistake. That's what the deviation process is all about. And actually, in an FDA audit, the deviations are one of the first things that people will ask for when they go into a facility. They're going to say, okay, yeah, thanks for having us. Now let us see your deviations. They know mistakes are going to happen. That is not a question. That's not an issue for them. What is an issue is that if the company does not log them, if the company does not file them away, if a company does not figure out what caused the deviation and how they kind of are going to adjust it and fix the problem in the future. That's what it's all about. So FDA will often request the deviations first, or one of the first things that they actually request for. Just make sure everything is in order. Make sure things are filed. Make sure things are documented. Make sure that things are explained. And then you're fine. It's not a big deal. Deviations will happen. So this is going to bring up the idea of what we call change control. Let's manage change to prevent the unwanted things from happening. And this is typically quality assurance and quality controls type of arena. This is what they have been hired to do. Let's go in and let's modify an SOP. Let's add an extra step. Let's add an extra section. Let's take away a step. Whatever they deem is appropriate, they need to improve it. Again, current. That's what this is all about. So if they do make a change, that is a change that has to be documented. There's got to be a control measure in place. We've got to record what the change was. We've got to do a new reversion, or we've got to do a new update to the SOP, a revision. We track it, we log it, we file it, we write down the excuses. They're not really excuses, they're explanations. How does that affect anything else if it does? All of that goes into play. Deviation is very important. So, folks, here's my take-home message to you. If you mess up, you tell somebody. Do not try to hide it. Do not own up to it. Do not just sweep it under the rug. Shh, nobody's going to find out about it. I'll just be real sneaky and I'll just continue to do it. Everything will work out on the end. It's no big deal. No, it is a big deal, because what you just did could ruin an entire patch of drug product, and that entire batch is going to get rejected at the very end, and then it's all for nothing. So not only did you make a mistake, but now you've made a mistake that costed everybody their time, that cost the company maybe multiple millions of dollars to make a product that's no longer any good because you didn't want to own up to the deviation that you did. That's bad. Do not be that person. Please do not be that person. As far as raw materials are concerned, two terms that are going to go into this. One is going to be a charge-in. So a deviation could very much be this idea of let's add a certain mass or weight of a raw material. Whoopsie! I measured out the wrong amount, but nobody ever know. I added 2 cake box mixes, not 1. But I'm going to still make the cake and it's going to turn out great. Yeah, right. Try it. See what happens. So this idea of adding reagents and adding the raw material, that is what we define as charge in. We are charging in the components. And compounding is the idea that you are mixing and adding these ingredients together. So if you go back and you take a look at your cake box, your eggs and your butter and your water and so forth, we are going to charge those into the bowl. And you're going to take a whisk or a spoon and you're going to start the process of compounding, which is adding and mixing those ingredients out. In the bowl, 50 strokes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's a brownie, not cake batter. If there's a deviation that happens in the mass, we've got to do something to prevent that mass from having a problem in the future. Can we put in something like an automated weighing machine that will automatically dispense the proper amount for us, and it's more efficient and it makes our life a little more convenient? It prevents some mistakes from happening. Is that a possibility? Yes or no? The compounding, mixing, what does mixing even mean? So if I do mix something, then how fast, slowly should it turn? What's the RPMs if it's going to mix? Is it 50 strokes? Did I do 50 strokes? Did I do 60 strokes? If I did 60, that's a deviation. How can we prevent that deviation from happening in the future? It's got to be logged. It's got to be documented. Why did you do it 10 extra times? Again, if we can put automation to it, we can control it more. It allows those mistakes to not happen as often. And that's the name of the game. Keep it consistent day after day after day. The overall goal here with GMP, current good manufacturing practices, is that we are trying to make a product that we call is a full label claim. That means if I go and I get a drug and it's 250 milligrams per tablet, I want to make sure there's 250 milligrams in that tablet. All of the other things that hold that tablet together, all of that is very important type of thing. All of those are ingredients. I want to make sure that those are in there according to plan. The appropriate amounts are present. So all of those batches that we make of these pharmaceutical drugs, they have to be done in a way that we call full label claim. Especially for the active ingredient. And that active ingredient, once again, is abbreviated with an API. Someone's got to test it. Someone's got to double check it. Again, those are going to be our laboratory people. They're going to clear it out. Looks great. Looks good. Production staff. Yay! And now off it goes into the consumer market. Some of the other cGMP types of regulations as far as these products go and as far as production go will also include labels. A couple of different terms here that we're going to see when it comes to labeling and packaging. The container in which the material is dispensed, weighed out for a specific batch, has to have the following information on the labels in that container. Material name or part number. Again, it could be like a medical device. Second, the material batch number. We've made a batch. This is a cake that got out of the oven. We should assign a name to that. We cut that cake up into little pieces. We put each piece into a little container. Well, we want to make sure that we identify where those pieces came from. What cake did it come from? So that batch number is very important. 3, the exact weight that has been dispensed. And number 4, the product lot that it was weighed out for. Very important on labels. I will see this information on the material that I work with. I will see this information on the labels of everything in the production line. It's all about traceability. Therefore, when I end up with that final product based on the information on that label, I can use that information and backtrack and figure out where things came from, what batches did it come from, what instrumentation was used in order to make that product, so we can figure out where problems maybe happened that we did not catch as it was progressing through the manufacturing facility. As I'm weighing, as I'm mixing, as I'm blending, as I'm recording data on my log sheets every day that I go into the job, it is very important that you have a verifier. This is another control aspect within the production line. So a verifier is like a right-hand man or woman. It is someone that's going to be beside of you, watching you do your job, and they are verifying that you are doing it correctly. And they are there, and they're there to vouch. Now, this is unless proof is available. So, for instance, if I go up to a balance and I weigh something on a balance, there could be a receipt ticket printer that is there. That receipt paper will print off the mass, and that mass can be ripped from that receipt ticket. It can be taped or attached to a document in some form, in some fashion. We can have a paper copy of that. We can have an electronic copy of that. That's not a problem. That would be my verifier. I wouldn't need maybe a second eyes for that. But if there's something that I really can't do hardcore proof of, or it's a little difficult to do, I need a second set of eyeballs that is there with me as I do this task. So if I go up to a balance that doesn't have a printer and I weigh out 1,200 grams, I mean, again, I'm just making this stuff up. They're going to be there. They're going to look at the value that's on that balance. You're going to write that value down and you're going to initial it. And the verifier will look at that recording, and then they'll look at the balance and they'll make sure that those two things match. And they will say, oh yeah, good job. I'll put my initials there for you. So we have two people that have vouched that a step has taken place. Two people will vouch on measurements. Two people will vouch on procedure steps. Two people will vouch on filling. Two people will vouch on labeling. If you're adding material, one person will add it. The second person will vouch and say, yep, that person added it. I saw it happen. I was there. And keep in mind, these documents are going to be contemporaneous. We talked about the Alcoa aspect of documentation. We have a contemporaneous C that stands for Alcoa. Part of it, at least. Things are getting filled out in real time. Things are getting initialed in real time. Things are getting time and date stamped in real time. A second person is also vouching for all of the equipment that you need to use. Double checking inventories and ID numbers. So for instance, I'm going to read an SOP and it's going to tell me go to the appropriate batch. I'm going to follow my directions and it's going to say using mixer number 2. So I go over to mixer number 2 and I double check that label. Is that really mixer number 2? And then I'm going to go, yeah, it is. And I'm going to put my initials on it. I'm going to sign and date it. And then I'm going to turn a look at my verifier and I'm going to go, hey, buddy, you're right here with me. Did I pick out the right one? Does it say number 2 to you? And they're going to look at it and they're going to say, yeah, it looks like number 2 to me. And then I'm going to hand them the form and I'm going to say, now you sign, date it, and initial it. But in doing so, both people are at fault if something messes up. No slackies. Slackies, go away. Bye-bye, slacks. Don't come around. If you are not reading things carefully, initialing it, your verifier doesn't care. They're just initialing whatever you initial. Okay. You're going to mess up. When you do mess up at whatever day and time that happens, both of you are at fault. And if you lied, or if you wrote data that you know was untrue, or that you did things that you know that you did not do, and a verifier has also initialed it, and they weren't even there to watch it, or they didn't even bother to look at readings and readouts and displays that you were writing down, and they were just initialing left and right, both of you are at fault. Both of you take responsibility, and both of you could end up losing your jobs because of it. Don't take the fall for someone else. If you know that they did not do the step, do not initial it. If you know that they wrote down a value that is not true or not appropriate or not what's on the screen, you do not initial it, because it could come back to bite you and the originator of the problem to begin with. So that's where this video is going to stop. In the next one, we're going to talk about mistakes.